Welcome to Parallel Perspectives, a podcast where we delve into the complexities of parenting while navigating the challenges of narcissism. I'm your host, Chelsea, and together we'll explore the world of parallel parenting. This is your safe space to gain insights, find support, and foster growth for both you and your children.
Welcome to Parallel Perspectives, the podcast that understands co-parenting with a narcissist is like hosting a dinner party with a mime as your only guest. My name is Chelsea, and I'm here to navigate you through the challenges of dealing with a narcissistic co-parent. But in this episode, we're going to ask ourselves the question, are they narcissistic or are they just annoying? Because a lot of the time when you're sharing parenting responsibilities, there's a lot of, there's some pride at play. There could be some bad feelings over the breakup at play. And in normal, typical situations, those things kind of work themselves out. And sometimes people are just annoying. Sometimes people are forgetful. Sometimes they're a little self-absorbed. And there are times where we might have to just suck it up and deal with their annoying personality traits. If we addressed everything our ex did that was annoying, we would probably die from emotional exhaustion. So the reason why I want to talk about this is it's important to understand exactly what bad co-parenting is. So if you're dealing with somebody who is toxic, narcissistic, manipulative, controlling, you can address it with some clarity and with some strategies. And why I want to make that distinction as well is, like I mentioned, if your ex is just annoying and you just hone in on every annoying behavior, you're going to wear yourself out. So making that distinction is going to help you understand when to, address a concern and how to address a concern in a way that avoids conflict and creates a more peaceful environment for you and your children. It's also about knowing if you are in a harmful and manipulative situation so that you can do what you need to do to protect yourself and your child. All right, so if you're in a tough co-parenting situation, let's take a look at the signs to see if you're actually dealing with a bad co-parent and not just someone who's being annoying. So here are the signs of a bad and toxic co-parent or somebody who is narcissistic. The first sign is going to be lack of empathy. This is one of the key signs that you're dealing with a bad co-parent. This is when your ex-partner consistently dismisses your feelings, concerns, or the needs of your children. So you might be worried about something and you tell your ex this, and they might tell you that you're being overdramatic. This leaves you feeling unheard and unvalidated. So that's a lack of empathy. Number 2 is manipulative behaviors. And this is kind of a big, cornerstone sign of somebody being narcissistic, toxic, or just a bad co-parent, is they will use manipulative tactics like guilt tripping, gaslighting, or constant attempts to control situations. And this leads to a very toxic co-parenting dynamic. So imagine that you need to reschedule a visit because of a family event. Your co-parent might try to make you feel guilty, saying that you are taking time away from their child, even if you offer to reschedule the visit. Sign number 3 is inconsistent parenting. And this is one of those ones that could just be annoying. Some people can't be consistent. Some people are flighty and they'll change their plans, change their minds. That could just be an annoying trait. But when somebody is doing it to be manipulative and controlling, that's a toxic behavior. So a bad co-parent may be inconsistent with their involvement and commitment to parenting. And this can lead to confusion and instability for your kiddos, which can then affect their emotional well-being. Here's an example. Let's say your ex promises to attend a school event, but cancels at the last minute or just doesn't even show up. I mean, imagine how that's going to feel for your child. And somebody who's just annoying might do that without the intent of hurting the child, even though it does. And it's not excusable if it's just what I consider an annoying behavior. But somebody who is toxic or narcissistic are going to do it on purpose to hurt the child's feelings. They're going to do it so that hopefully their child will express the disappointment. I wanted you there. I missed you. That makes a narcissist feel good, as gross as that sounds. Or let's say they don't stick to the parenting plan or they frequently miss visitations. This could be for many reasons when it comes to dealing with a narcissist. It could be just to piss you off, which they love doing. It could be to, again, control. Even if they're canceling time with their kids or not showing up, they're controlling the schedule. And they'll do it purposefully, just to be manipulative. All right, so the fourth sign is sort of a biggie when it comes to figuring out if you're dealing with a narcissist or a toxic person or just somebody who's plain annoying. And that is difficulty in co parenting communication. In sort of normal, typical co parenting situations, you should be able to talk to your ex about things that concern you, give advice, ask questions, and that should all be fine. Maybe the odd argument pops up, but that's normal. With narcissistic and toxic exes and co parents, they purposely make communication difficult. A bad co parent is probably going to start unnecessary and stupid conflicts. They might refuse to communicate, or they might use communication as a way to manipulate you. I know many times I tried to bring legitimate concerns to my ex in a way that was straightforward and civil, but then he would turn around and personally attack me or turn the conversation into a heated argument. He didn't want to hear what I had to say about our child. He just wanted to use every opportunity to start a fight. And they might start conversations with you just to do the same. All right. Number 5 is self-centered behavior. People act selfish. I've noticed a lot in situations where, parents have been split up and the ex is, a good parent, but I find that when one parent doesn't have, majority time with the child, they tend to be a bit selfish about what they do with their life. And I'm not going to go into a lot of examples of that, but just to show you that, people can be selfish. As a mother, I can be selfish sometimes. Sometimes I would rather just do my own thing than, do something with my daughter. It's fine. Selfishness, it can come and go. It's not a horrible thing. But when you start prioritizing your own needs and desires over those of your children on a regular basis, then that's bad. And that's what a lot of narcissists will do. This can result in neglecting their children's emotional and physical needs. It can result in things like missing time with their kids, messing with that schedule like we talked about. Here's an example. So your ex might try to change their parenting time schedule based on convenience instead of sticking to something that works for the child. Like they might say, well, I can't do, I don't want to do mornings because I don't want to get up early. And you might say, well, mornings are the only time, is the best time for our kid for them to be dropped off to you, or something like that. Or they may refuse to pay child support because they just want to keep their money and they don't want to give you any. They don't want you to succeed and thrive in life. So they're going to, hang on to every cent they can. And that is a self-centered behavior as well. Annoying co-parents are probably not going to push selfishness to that extreme. Again, we all get a little selfish when it comes to our time, when we're, when we do have parenting responsibilities, but at the end of the day, our children are taken care of. They've gotten they've had our attention, our love. People who are self-centered and narcissistic are going to withhold that stuff just because it's better for them. Sorry. I don't even know if I can edit out the purring, and I kind of don't want to. I love it. He's just a happy boy. All right. Here is sign number 6 that you're dealing with a bad co-parent, not just an annoying one. And that is a lack of boundaries. And not just a lack of them having boundaries, a lack of respect for your boundaries. I mean, we're all normal. We cross boundaries every now and then. But a bad co-parent or a narcissistic co-parent is going to do it on purpose. And they're going to do it consistently. And the reason why they want to do that is control. They want to know what you're doing in your life. They want to know information they don't have a right to use against you. They want to encroach on your space, whether it's mental, whether it's physical, because that all gives them a sense of control. An example of that would be like your ex showing up unannounced at your home, which is, I think, a huge no-no. I mean, if you have a good relationship with your co-parent, that might be okay, but I think, when you are having difficulties with your co-parent, whether they're narcissistic or annoying, that's a huge no. That's a huge boundary overstep. They might ignore the parenting time schedule. They might show up early, show up late, not show up. They might continually call you when you've asked them to communicate with you through text or email. They might continually ask you questions about your personal life. So when I say that they don't respect your boundaries, I mean on a regular basis, and they will purposefully do whatever they can to overstep your boundaries. Okay, we're almost to the end of signs that you're dealing with a bad co-parent and not just an annoying one. So number 7 is constant criticism. And people who are toxic, narcissistic, difficult, you may find that they're constantly criticizing you, your parenting skills, your personal life. They probably criticize their children on a regular basis. This is a huge bad co-parenting red flag. They're using it to assert their control. They're using it to undermine your confidence as a parent. Because if you know anything about being in a relationship with a narcissist, like I'm sure you were there, but when you understand the nuances of that, what they do is they break you down so that you don't have the emotional strength to fight back. And they'll still do that in co-parenting as well. So, for example, your ex might make comments about your child's clothes or their performance in school and then blame you for it and tell you what you're doing wrong and how you should do it differently, because in their mind, they're the perfect parent. And I'm doing air quotes with my fingers. Again, it's to break you down, and they'll do it to their kids as well. Again, just to sort of, make them emotionally weak so they can be easier to control. So speaking of our kids, number 8 is emotional turmoil for the kids. Unfortunately, it's the kids. It's our little ones that get caught in the middle of a bad co-parent's nonsense. Children are highly perceptive. We may think we're shielding them from the drama and from the conflict, but they're going to pick up on things that are happening, and they're going to be negatively impacted by the situation, whether it's the situation itself or whether it's how they're being treated by their other parent. So it's important to watch for signs of distress with your kid or behavioral changes, so changes in appetite, sleep, academic performance. I actually have an article about recognizing anxiety signs in children that I'll leave a link to in the show notes, which I wrote because I went through it with my own daughter. She was dealing with anxiety, and it was one of those things where I wish I had picked up on it a bit sooner, but I did recognize what was happening, got her the help she needed, and she's doing fantastic now. So check the show notes. I'll leave a link to that article down there. All right, the last sign is inappropriate co-parenting behavior. And I don't mean like that kind of inappropriate. That's on a whole other level of you need to talk to an authority somewhere. What I mean by inappropriate is there's different things that a narcissistic co-parent may do that you can actually address head on. And it's things like using your child as a messenger to send messages to you, talking badly about you in front of your child, trying to turn them against you, which is known as parental alienation. And that's actually against the law. There's something called parentification, where the parent will try to push the child into adult responsibilities that are not age appropriate. These are the kinds of things that need to be addressed directly, like I said. So it's one of those instances where you kind of have to say something to your ex, even though you know that bringing it up is going to cause a shitstorm. But if they don't listen to you, if they don't correct these behaviors, you can actually take all that to a lawyer. If you have a court order, you can make amends to it to address this. If you don't, that would be a good time to get one to help, minimize these behaviors to protect your child. All right, so we've talked quite a bit about the signs of a bad co-parent versus someone who's just annoying. And before we move on to how to deal with a bad co-parent, I just want to talk super quick about an ebook I wrote. It's about helping your child in a parallel parenting situation. So when I write a lot about parallel parenting, it's a lot about strategy and, what steps to take, how to avoid conflict, how to make a smoother situation when you're co-parenting with someone. But in the middle of all that, at the epicenter of parallel parenting is the child. And while we're making, we're doing everything we can to protect ourselves, to develop our own emotional resilience so that our exes don't, cause us stress and anxiety, we have to take our kids into consideration as well. Which is why I do write a lot about how to protect your kids in these situations, how to support them. And this free little ebook kind of just compiles all that into one place. So I'll drop that link in the show notes as well, and you can go check it out. All you have to do is sign up for my email list, which I send out a weekly email. I don't plug up your inbox. And I just try to share some additional advice and resources that I don't have on the blog or in this podcast. So that link will be in the show notes, and you can check it out there. So now let's talk about how to deal with a bad co-parent. So we've, talked about how to distinguish between a narcissistic, toxic, difficult, bad co-parent. We can give them all those labels, or someone who's just annoying, who maybe needs some time to settle into a co-parenting situation. So if you're dealing with the bad kind, here are a few quick ideas. I do write a lot about this on the blog that you can check out, but here's some things you can do. And the first thing is to establish clear boundaries. You can tell your ex how you want to communicate if you want to use text or email. You can tell your ex what you will respond to or not respond to, what you're going to ignore. You might think that even if there's a court order telling you have to stay in contact with your ex, if there's a court order telling you that your ex gets time with your child, there are ways that you can still maintain control in the situation, even if it doesn't feel that way. And that's by establishing boundaries. You can tell your ex they're not allowed, to come into your home. You can tell your ex that they're not allowed to come to your front door. You're within your rights to do that, as long as it doesn't impede a court order, as long as it doesn't impede any agreements. Then you can put your foot down over all kinds of things. And what this does is not only does it protect, you from having your boundaries overstepped, it protects your child as well, and it shows them what it means to establish and maintain boundaries. Another thing you can do is to focus on communication. So yeah, communication is a huge source of stress when you're dealing with a bad co-parent. So when you are communicating with your ex, make sure you're only talking about your child and important information. If your ex asks how your child's day was, there's really no reason not to share that information with them. But if they're asking you how your day was, you don't have to answer. That is none of their business. And again, limit that communication to text or email so that you can A, have proof and evidence of what is said. B, it gives you a chance to figure out if you need to respond or not, and if you do have to respond, how you're going to respond. And try to avoid face-to-face confrontations and phone calls. In those situations, it's hard to maintain emotional control, so if you can just avoid talking about things in those situations, I say go for it. It's not about manners or etiquette, it's about reducing that conflict so that you can create a better environment for yourself and for your child. One other thing you should absolutely do if nothing else works, and if this is ongoing, and if this is causing extreme stress and anxiety in your life and your child's life, talk to a lawyer. It might be time to get some professional guidance, even if it's a free consultation at your local family court office, just to see what your options are. Another thing that you need to do, and again, like I mentioned with the ebook I wrote, is prioritizing the kids. They're the most important part of this. This is why we're putting in so much effort to reduce conflict, to build emotional resilience, to take back control, is because we want to make a better situation for them. But you are a part of this too. And don't forget that. I know a lot falls on your shoulders. You have a lot of responsibility in a situation like this to, keep things from going off the rails. It's not fair, I know. Like, why do they get to be huge assholes and we have to take on the brunt of dealing with that? And yeah, it still makes me angry, and I can understand if it makes you angry, and it's normal to feel angry about that. So make sure you're taking care of yourself too, mentally and emotionally. Make sure you're doing things that relax you, doing things that make you happy. If you're to a breaking point, talk to a therapist, join a support group, which FYI, I have one on Facebook. I'll drop a link in the show notes. Connect with people who understand your situation. Take that bubble bath, read that book, give your kid the tablet for an hour and go watch YouTube in your room. Like, it's okay. It's all about balance. And, while you're trying to deal with asshole over here and take care of your kids, make sure you're, focusing on yourself in that situation too. It's complicated. It's a weird dynamic. There's a lot of moving parts to this. But basically it comes down to keeping your ex in check, making sure your kids are okay, and then making sure you're okay too. And those are all things that you can do if you're dealing with a bad co-parent. And I hope you kind of understand why I want to highlight the differences between bad, narcissistic, difficult, toxic co-parents or just annoying ones that don't purposefully make life difficult but kind of do. It's going to be stressful. Even if they're just annoying, it's going to be stressful. There's going to be a lot of banging your head against the wall moments, and it's okay to be stressed out about that. I don't want you to think, oh, geez, I'm not dealing with a narcissist. I have no right to be stressed out. No, you do. The difference is if you're dealing with a bad, difficult, toxic, narcissistic co-parent, is how you deal with it. And you need to understand the behaviors. You need to understand what triggers them, how to avoid triggering them, how to take control, how to set your boundaries. Again, there's a lot of moving parts, but understanding what you're dealing with is that first step. Thank you very much for listening. And again, just want to remind you, you can't make the situation perfect, but you can make it better. Anyway, again, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next episode.
The advice provided in this podcast is not legal advice. Please consult with a qualified professional for personalized guidance. The terms narcissism and narcissists are used to refer to behaviors and tendencies of an individual, not as an official diagnosis. Music provided by Upbeat is free for creators. And don't forget to visit motherhoodandmayhem.online for more information. Thanks for listening and take care.